Henny, go ahead and just tell me your name and then why you're significant to Kennywood.
Well, my name's Henninger. I'm known as Henny. I am third generation of a company that was owned 50-50 by two families and managed to keep an amusement park in an industrial area like Pittsburgh, and it continues to thrive. So it was an interesting career, life, because it was part of the family and so it was part of your everyday life. And other interesting thing about Pittsburgh is there were two amusement parks, both somewhat equal in quality from the early 1900s right up until 1976. One time, the two roller coasters at Westview were better than those at Kennywood, and I wouldn't have said that back then. Phantom came along because Cedar Point is our greatest competitor, and they had built this mega coaster, 200-foot lift. And a 200-foot lift in Kennywood wasn't realistic for two reasons. One, we didn't have the ground space because 200 feet high means you have to kill that much energy. And when you have that much length, Kennywood couldn't afford the product. And one night I was dreaming and said, but if you put the 200-foot drop in the middle of the ride, you don't build up additional energy and you overcome two problems. And I came out the next morning and went straight and looked at the Thunderbolt and ordered some gateway engineering surveying done to see if the idea was possible, and it was. At the time, I was very fortunate that I got to go ride a lot of things, so I went out to Magic Mountain, and the Viper was out there, and there were two aspects of the Viper that I particularly cared for. One was the sweeping turn off of the lift. I thought that was a wonderful gut-wrenching sensation. And the other thing was that they did have, it was the time of inversions, loops and corkscrews, and a few others were, boomerangs were in vogue, and it just seemed like that would be, again, you eat up a lot of energy in inversions that you don't in flat track. At the time, they were the leading developer. It was before Dana Morgan, it was before B&M. I was really, I was used to, we had gone through a roller coaster that was Intamin, but built by Schwarzkopf, which was the laser loop. And anytime you do something, cutting edge technology, you wind up with some bruises. And so let's just say that our relationship with Aero is closer at that moment. Well, I do think two things. It wasn't the 200-foot drop because there were several of those around the country. But the vision as you came over the crest and down through the Thunderbolt was the river. And I'd love to say that we visioned that before we put it in, but we were all the most surprised as you came over because it wasn't 200 feet, it was 1,000 feet to the river. So it gave you a tremendous visual illusion that just added to the sensation. Well, I almost lost my job on the first thing. I was told by the powers that be, which were mostly older relatives, that we couldn't have a water ride because we had very significant school picnics in April, and it was cold. And if they got wet, the parents had complained, they think polio was coming. It was like, oh my God, the scourge of the earth is gonna come if we have a water ride. So on my own, I took blank paper, not on Kennywood, at home. My wife typed the letter, "Dear Mr. Campbell," who was the CEO of Aero at the time. And I said, would you please answer the following 8 questions? Please do not mail this back to Kennywood. I am doing this on my own. 2 weeks later, my father called me on the radio and pardon this blue language, he said, get your ass up to your uncle's office, you're done. Hands me this letter. Dear Carl, so glad that you're interested in a log flume. Our representative, Norm Scott, will be out next week to talk to you. I managed to stay, and so did the ride.
That's pretty good. That's fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to try and get back. I'm getting this interview back, damn it. Talk about the spillway drop. Why is that unique on flumes in the world now?
When we were looking at what we wanted, we knew where we were going to put it. There was a pony track here, and pony track was pretty easy to move. And we had very good surveys of the very large London plane trees that were in the back. And our goal was to get up into the trees and save as many as possible, and then wind up with the downsplash, obviously overlooking our wonderful Midway here. So as we were tweaking it, Norm Scott said, well, you know, we have this element called the spillway. And we did some sketches and did some reading on it, and we went, wow. We call ourselves roller coaster capital of the world at the time, and this would just play into it. So we added it. We're glad we did. It does take some maintenance, but we're glad that we haven't given in and taken it out for convenience. Well, I think foremost, you really have to look at the Disney era. I'm sure that Disney would have found somebody else if they hadn't found Aero, but it helped Disney become a reality which many people in our industry did not believe would succeed. But it also gave a higher level of technology engineering, and therefore a ramp into these fantastic products that Aero developed or continued to build. Between the turnpike rides and the roller coasters and the log flumes and the hydro flumes and on, Aero is very important to our industry. Probably the single most important manufacturer in the development up till now.